Imagine you are standing on the edge of a precipice, staring down into an abyss so profound that it could easily swallow the tallest mountains on Earth and still leave kilometers of dark, freezing water above their highest peaks. You are looking at the Hadal Zone, the absolute bottom of our planet, plunging to depths of nearly 11 kilometers. If you were to physically descend into this ink-black void, dropping past the twilight zone and into the crushing, claustrophobic depths of the oceanic trenches, you would enter an environment defined by extreme, unrelenting deprivation. The ambient temperature hovers just above freezing, stalling indefinitely between 1 and 3 degrees Celsius. The hydrostatic pressure is utterly immense, reaching up to 1,000 atmospheres, a physical force roughly equivalent to the weight of several commercial jumbo jets resting on every single square inch of your fragile body. Down here, there is absolutely no sunlight to drive the life-giving process of photosynthesis. There are no changing seasons to signal the passage of time. And, perhaps most terrifyingly, there is almost no food. Logic, and our fundamental understanding of terrestrial biology, dictates that any living creature surviving in this desolate, high-pressure wasteland should be tiny, starved, and stunted. They should be conserving every microscopic fraction of energy just to keep their internal organs functioning. But nature, as you are about to discover, possesses a profoundly twisted sense of humor. Instead of finding a realm of microscopic scavengers, we find that this pitch-black, frozen purgatory is ruled by undeniable titans. We call this biological anomaly deep-sea gigantism. By the end of this journey, you will understand exactly why the most inhospitable and barren place on Earth intentionally breeds the largest monsters, and why their ancient, silent reign of terror might very soon be brought to a suffocating, human-induced end. To truly comprehend the sheer scale of these abyssal anomalies, you must first understand the biological weapons and physical dimensions they use to dominate the darkness. Let us escalate the scale. Consider the colossal squid, a creature whose very name invokes ancient maritime nightmares and centuries of sailor folklore. While its shallow water cousins dart through sunlit coral reefs measuring mere centimeters, the colossal squid patrols the freezing depths at lengths reaching 14 meters. Its eyes are the size of dinner plates, meticulously designed by evolution to capture the faintest bioluminescent glimmers in a world entirely devoid of sunlight. It wields swiveling hooks on its massive tentacles, tearing into prey with a ferocity unmatched in the abyss. Or picture the giant isopod, a distant genetic relative of the common terrestrial woodlouse you might find hiding under a damp log in your back garden. While the land-dwelling woodlouse is a fraction of an inch long, the giant isopod prowls the ocean floor at lengths of over 75 centimeters, presenting itself as a prehistoric-looking, terrifying scavenger encased in a pale, segmented suit of armor. Then there is the giant phantom jelly, a ghostly, ethereal apparition with thick, ribbon-like mouth arms trailing 10 meters into the dark. And the giant oarfish, a serpentine titan that can reach 7 meters in length. The sheer, overwhelming scale of these creatures immediately induces a profound sense of awe, but it simultaneously presents a massive biological contradiction. How can such immense, energy-hungry biological machines fuel themselves in a habitat where the primary food source is marine snow? This marine snow is nothing more than a slow, pathetic drizzle of decaying organic matter, dead phytoplankton, and fecal pellets falling from the sunlit surface thousands of meters above. In the shallower, warmer waters of the world, gigantism is usually a luxury afforded only by an absolute, continuous abundance of calories and a forgiving climate. Yet here, at the absolute bottom of the world, these animals are not just surviving, they are growing to proportions that seem to completely defy the fundamental laws of energy conservation. They are the supreme rulers of a starving world, orchestrating complex hunts in the pitch black and enduring physical conditions that would instantly crush the titanium hull of a military submarine. Their dominance is terrifying, but it is not magic. It is a highly calculated, incredibly complex, evolutionary gamble. To unravel this impossible mystery, we must pivot our focus away from the monstrous, heavily armoured exteriors of these creatures and dive deep into their internal, microscopic mechanics. We must examine the invisible chemistry of the deep ocean. The first key to understanding deep-sea gigantism lies in a physiological concept known as Kleiber's law. You might naturally assume that a massive body inherently requires a massive, constant intake of food, making gigantism a fatal biological flaw in a severely starved environment. However, Kleiber's law reveals a brilliant, counterintuitive truth about animal metabolism. As an organism gets larger, its metabolism becomes exponentially more efficient. The basal metabolic rate of an animal scales to roughly the 3/4 power of its mass. In simpler, more direct terms, a giant isopod requires significantly less energy per gram of tissue to stay alive than a tiny, shallow water amphipod. By evolving to gigantic proportions, these deep-sea dwellers are essentially transforming their bodies into highly efficient, long-lasting biological batteries. When a whale carcass or a large piece of carrion finally plummets to the abyssal seabed, it creates a rare, chaotic, and frenzied feast. A small creature can only eat a few grams of flesh before its tiny stomach is completely full, meaning it must continuously and desperately hunt for these sparse windfalls. But a giant isopod can gorge itself with horrifying efficiency. It can devour so much decaying flesh in a single sitting that its articulated armor plates visibly distend and stretch, heavily compromising its very ability to walk across the mud. Once its massive body is fully charged with thousands of calories, its hyper-efficient metabolism shifts into a state of near-suspended animation. These creatures have been known to survive in laboratory captivity for 5 entire years without eating a single morsel of food. But metabolism is only one piece of the puzzle. The freezing temperature of the abyssal water is fundamentally altering the cellular structure of these animals. In zoology, there is an ecogeographical principle known as Bergmann's rule, which observes that animals in colder climates tend to have larger bodies than their relatives in warmer environments. In the near-freezing temperatures of the deep sea, the very process of cell division slows down to an agonizing crawl. Because the cells take significantly longer to divide, they grow much larger before they finally split. Consequently, the animals themselves become much larger. This frigid, high-pressure environment also drastically extends their lifespans, severely delaying sexual maturity and allowing for continuous, lifelong growth. While a shallow-water tube worm might live for only 2 years, its deep-sea cousins, residing near cold seeps, grow slowly and steadily, living for over 250 years. The freezing water acts as a natural cryogenic preservative, slowing time itself and allowing these creatures to slowly accumulate immense mass over centuries. Yet there is a hidden underlying necessity to this gigantism that answers the core paradox of the deep sea. You might wonder, if growing larger makes you far more efficient and helps you effortlessly survive the biting cold, why do not all deep-sea creatures become titans? Why are there still microscopic organisms alongside these monsters? The ultimate reveal lies in the invisible, life-giving gas dissolved in the water immediately around them: oxygen. In the intermediary depths of the ocean, typically between 200 and 1,000 meters down, oxygen levels plummet drastically, creating extreme oxygen minimum zones where respiration is a constant, desperate, and exhausting struggle. But as you descend even deeper, a strange and highly specific physical phenomenon occurs. The increasing hydrostatic pressure and the sharply decreasing temperatures actually force more oxygen to dissolve directly into the water. The deep, frigid thermohaline currents sweeping across the abyssal plains carry a surprisingly rich, concentrated supply of dissolved oxygen from the polar regions. However, absorbing that available oxygen in near-freezing temperatures is a monumental physiological challenge for any living tissue. Here is where the absolute genius of deep-sea gigantism truly shines. A larger organism has a fundamentally greater, expanded capacity to intake and process this dissolved oxygen. The deep-sea gigantism we routinely see in abyssal crustaceans, cephalopods, and cnidarians is an adaptive, structural trait forged specifically to combat asphyxiation in frigid, exceptionally dense ocean waters. By scaling up their entire bodies, they exponentially expand their internal respiratory networks. They build significantly larger gills, pump far greater volumes of hemolymph through their veins, and maximize their surface area to extract the life-sustaining gas from the freezing water. They grow incredibly massive, not just to store food, but fundamentally they grow massive to breathe. However, this evolutionary strategy comes with a highly lethal caveat. This increased absorption of oxygen runs the severe risk of toxicity poisoning. If an organism takes in too much oxygen at these extreme pressures, it chemically becomes harmful and poisonous to the tissues. Deep-sea giants are therefore walking a razor-thin biological tightrope every second of their lives. This is the undeniable evidence that explains their monstrous alien forms. It is a delicate, high-stakes balancing act between starvation, suffocation, and toxic poisoning. Furthermore, the radically reduced predation pressure in the extreme depths allows them to grow large without the constant, energetic need to flee from faster, warmer-blooded hunters. They have conquered the abyss by weaponizing their own mass. Their gigantic bodies are slow, highly efficient, heavily armoured oxygen-harvesting machines, perfectly tuned to exploit a habitat where every single calorie and every single molecule of oxygen must be stretched to its absolute, unforgiving limit. But as we look upon these ancient, incredibly successful titans, we must turn the dark mirror back upon ourselves and confront a chilling, rapidly impending reality. These giants have evolved over millions of years, perfectly calibrating their complex biology to the stable, unchanging cold and the consistent, oxygen-rich deep water currents. They are the undisputed masters of a completely static world. But tragically, that world is no longer static. You and I live far above on the sunlit surface, entirely divorced from the crushing, lethal pressures of the oceanic trenches. Yet, The invisible tethers of the global climate connect our exhaust pipes and industrial smokestacks directly to the ocean floor. As humanity continues to relentlessly pump greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, the oceans are absorbing the absolute brunt of this thermal assault. The surface waters are rapidly warming, and this insidious, unnatural heat is inexorably creeping downward into the dark. The ultimate threat to these abyssal giants is not a terrifying new predator or a sudden, catastrophic lack of falling carrion. It is the systematic dismantling of the very physical properties that allow them to exist in the first place. The deep ocean currents, the vital thermohaline circulation that drags cold, oxygen-rich water from the polar surfaces down into the abyss, are driven almost entirely by precise differences in temperature and salinity. As the poles unnaturally warm and ancient glacial ice violently melts, this global conveyor belt is visibly slowing down. The deep sea is gradually warming, and as water warms, its physical ability to hold dissolved oxygen plummets dramatically. The delicate, ancient evolutionary balance is unraveling before our eyes. The deep ocean is quietly, slowly, suffocating. Current scientific predictions suggest that continuous climate change and greenhouse gas emissions will lead to a significant global reduction in the critical levels of dissolved oxygen in the deep sea. The very trait that allowed these magnificent creatures to conquer the abyss, their enormous, oxygen-hungry bodies, is perfectly poised to become their fatal, inescapable vulnerability. A warmer, oxygen-depleted ocean simply cannot support a 14-metre squid or a giant isopod. They will ultimately find themselves trapped in bodies that are far too large to breathe and far too massive to sustain. The awe-inspiring phenomenon of deep-sea gigantism will diminish and fade, reversed not by the slow hand of natural evolution, but by a rapid, human-induced asphyxiation. We have spent centuries looking outward into the cosmos, searching for alien worlds and bizarre, extreme biology, entirely oblivious to the incredible alien titans ruling the darkness of our own planet. They are the ultimate survivors, living, breathing testaments to the sheer resilience and terrifying adaptability of life on Earth. Yet, for all their dense, impenetrable armor, for all their hyper-efficient metabolisms, and for all their mastery of the crushing dark, they are completely defenseless against the invisible chemical changes raining down from a world they will never even see. You must ask yourself, what does it mean for humanity when our careless actions on the sunlit surface are capable of reaching down through 11 kilometres of water into the most isolated, extreme sanctuary on Earth and quietly suffocating the giants in the dark?